Okay, so what you want to do is when you go in your trunk, you're going to lift this up, pull. If you have the room, you can actually lift the lining out completely. That'll give you enough room to access everything. Now what you want to do, there's this bracket right here that's securing your tire so it doesn't bounce around while you drive. You're going to take that off. Set that aside. Remove your spare tire. May take some wiggling. Next, what you want to do is look for the kit that has your jack in it. This one actually has a little cubby with 2 locks. You're going to pop the locks, remove the lid. You can place that in the trunk so you don't lose it. Then you're going to remove your jack. They might fit pretty snug in there. Now, this car has locking nuts, so there's going to be a key with the specific pattern just for your 1 lug nut per tire. And you want to grab this as well. Now, with the covers for the lug nuts, this car also came with a little hook. What you do is hook this inside the hole on the cap, and it'll pull the caps off for each lug nut as well. Okay, now in the case of this car, it actually has a little key to pull off the plastic caps that go over your hubcaps. You want to use the key and pop everyone off. Now in the case of this one, you just hook it and pull. You want to keep track of them. Sometimes they're a little stuck, especially if you live in the Midwest with the snow and weather. Okay. Once we have all of the covers off, then you can find your lug nut, which will have a locking pattern that matches your key. You're first going to loosen that one once you get it set on there. Now typically when they're tight, you can brace your hand on the body of the car, use your foot just to break it free. Once you've broken it free, you just want to loosen it a little bit. You're not going to fully take off your hubcaps until after your car is jacked in the air. And what you want to do is remove them in a star pattern. So I'm starting with the bottom right corner, moving up to the top left corner. Once that starts to spin loose, then you're good to go to the next one. Once they're all loose, you want to slide your jack under the car. And start to jack the car up. There's a little designated triangle right here on the body of the car that's pointing right to where your jack needs to be. There's this little lip of support. Not all vehicles have it. This one does, which is really nice because the jack is made perfectly to fit within this groove. That is where you want to lift the car from. Once you have the jack positioned correctly, you can start jacking the car up. You want to watch because as soon as your tire starts lifting off the ground, you know you have your car jacked up high enough to slide the tire off. Now that you have the car lifted up, what you want to do is, these are just broken free, so what you want to do is take your lug nut wrench, loosen them. Again, going in a star pattern, you want to remove each lug nut. Now I'm starting with the locking nut again, that way you don't forget. I try to keep the lug nut in the lock, so that way you always know which one it is. You can put your feet at the bottom of the tire just to brace the tire against the body so it stays flush. So as you remove the lug nuts, it still stays balanced. If you don't do this, what can happen is you can strip the lug nut because all the weight will go in between the grooves. And that way when you go to put the lug nut back in the car, back in the tire itself, it'll have a groove and it won't want to go, and you'll start to cross thread, which then you'll have to replace both parts. Now again, I'm making sure my feet stay on the outside of the tire, so if for some reason the car drops, I'm not under it. Okay, now that I have all the lug nuts out, grab it by the sides, pull the tire back, and then roll it out of the way and slide it under the car. Now what this does is ensures that for any reason, if your jack decides to drop and it slips in any way, you're still protected. That way, your car can't drop on you. Okay, now what you want to do is get your tire level. You're going to turn it so in each hole you can actually see, there we go, you can see where your lug nuts are going to go. So you're going to start by tightening your lug nuts, putting them in. Again, remembering to do the star pattern. Now because this is a locking nut, the neck around the nut actually spins, so you want to have the key on it to make sure you're actually turning the nut itself. If you want, you can do multiple nuts at a time. Again, because they're across from each other, you're okay. And here's your final one. Now what you're going to do is hand tighten them while the tire's in the air, just so they're nice and snug. Once you have that, you can remove your feet out of the way, and you're going to lower the tire and then tighten them the rest of the way. You don't want to tighten the tire while it's in the air because it's not sturdy on the stand. Now that you have the lug nuts hand tightened on there, what you want to do is make sure they're nice and snug. Start to lower your jack, remove your jack. Then what you're going to do is start with the locking nut. If you don't have a locking nut on your car, don't worry, you can just start with any lug nut. And what you're going to do is finish tightening them the rest of the way. Now, I'm just going to do it by hand, but what you want to do is if you can't get enough leverage by hand to get it tight and you do not have a torque wrench, what you want to do is step on it and apply more pressure until the lug nut does not move. That way you know it's tight enough to get you to where you need to go to have your tire replaced.